All right, so the first thing I want to talk about today is actually starting a Revit file. We'll talk about starting a Revit file, how to do that. We'll talk about the built-in templates that are in Revit and how you're going to use those. And then we're going to talk about the Revit interface once we get into the program and identify all the different areas in the Revit interface. We're going to talk about the project browsers and the properties dialog box, which are pretty important. And then all of the input tools, like the ribbon and the icons and the hand input keys, we'll talk about those. We'll talk about how to set your units, which usually are inherent in Revit, so they're not too bad setting, right? Or I guess it's not as hard to forget, like in AutoCAD, right? You'd cruise along for 2 hours in the wrong units on accident. That's not as likely to happen in Revit. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll have a small assignment today as well. All right, so let's just start from the beginning here. I want to talk about starting a new Revit file, okay? So when I open up my Revit software and I don't have a file open, right, I double click on the icon and Revit pops up. We are in our welcome, or I guess, you know, kind of the splash page here for Revit. It's this, I think it's really technically called the startup screen. And we have a few different areas in here I want to talk about. So I have this area called projects. And underneath projects, we have open, new, construction template, etc. Over here, I have our recent documents area. And these are going to be, this is a lot like AutoCAD, right? Where you open up the welcome page and you see projects that you had recently been working on showing up there, okay? So it's a little bit more graphic maybe than AutoCAD. So we have those two areas. The third area we have is called families. And under families, we have open and new conceptual mass, and then we have a recently opened area for families, okay? So yours may look a little different. I have a couple of things here because we were working on those in another class. So over here in our projects area, well, let me say this first. In Revit, we have a couple different file types, or I guess working areas that we can open, okay? So we have actual projects, and projects are where we do all of our 3D modeling geometry. That's where our actual architectural model is kept, okay? And then we have what are called families. And families, if we're going to compare this to AutoCAD, families are like blocks, okay? So they're groups of objects or geometry that are kind of glued together to represent something, right? Blocks in AutoCAD are usually 2D objects, right? So when you do a door symbol, it's going to be, you know, 4 lines or a rectangle to create the panel, and then an arc, right, to generate the door symbol. A family is a 3D block, meaning a family isn't just a few 2D symbols that represent something. It's actual 3D objects. So if I open this sample family here, which is a table, which in AutoCAD would just be a rectangle with some filleted corners, right? This is actually a 3D object, right? So it has a top, and I can select it, and it has 4 little legs that are cylinders, right? And they're all 3D objects, okay? So same idea, but just in 3D. So families are used inside of projects, right? So family examples would be things like doors, windows, furniture, different things like that. So we create our model in a project, and we insert families to represent different architectural elements within that model, okay? So in this projects area, this is where we're going to open an existing project, create a brand new project, or open up a new template file that we want to work in. So to open up a brand new project, I can click on new, okay? If I click on new, it'll say, hey, what kind of project do you want to open? This is a brand new blank file, and you'll notice that if I drop down here, I have the option to choose none. So none means there's no template applied, right? And a template is a drawing that has settings inherent in it that will help you, accomplish a specific task, right? We have the construction template, which contains definitions that are more specific to like residential construction, okay? There is the architectural template, which contains items that are more specific to commercial construction. And then the structural and mechanical we're not really going to worry about, okay? So if I click on new, I can choose one of these templates, okay? You notice I have the option to create a project or a project template, and I hit OK. I'm just going to escape out of this though. I can click on the construction template, and if I click on that, it will open up a blank construction template. So I just clicked on it. Revit opens up, and this setting, which is our drawing area, opens up. It's the first page we see. And this construction template has inherent settings available in it to do more of a residential project, right? So the wall types are more residential, the levels are more residential. There's that kind of definition in here, okay? So I'm going to close that out real quick here. You'll notice that I just come up here and I click on this little tab. Okay. I can click on the architectural template, same thing happens. And the architectural template is opened, okay? So all of the settings in here will be more tuned towards a commercial type project. So I'm going to close that out. So really, in this area, I have the option to click create a new blank project with no template, or to open up some of these predefined templates.
What if I didn't have all those templates?
Yours doesn't have them?
It just loaded a construction template, that's all I have.
On your laptop?
Yeah.
Sounds like you might need to do an install and do a repair on it, because it may not have loaded everything.
Right.
Yes, okay. Let me ask you all, what's that?
Oh, I've got them all.
You've got them all in yours? Yeah, it sounds like maybe you didn't get everything. Yeah. Let me ask you all to do one thing though. Will you, if you're open in Revit, will you all click on open right here? Or sorry, not open. Whoops. Will you click on new? And when you all click on new, are these available? All of these available? They are. Okay, good. You only have one. Yeah, I think you need to do another install and repair it. Yeah. Okay, good. So that eliminates something that we haven't done, which now we don't need to do. Okay. All right, we also have in this area the option to choose open. So if I click on open, that will allow me to browse out and find an existing Revit file that I've already been working on to open, right? So in my case, if I go to my my desktop here, I'm going to come into, I have a Revit file here, right? Example project. So I could open that, or I know I've got 2510, I have a project there, I could open that as well, right? So I could click on open, and that would open an existing project, okay? So these will allow you to open the templates, create a brand new blank file, or open an existing file. Over here in our recent documents, right? As you open and save projects, every time you open and save a project, that project will be shown here in this list, right? So the idea behind this is that it's an easy way to just sort of go to projects that you're always working on, right? So this project, which is from our 2510 class, hey, I'm working on that. Well, click. And when I click on it, it opens up that project, right? And it would allow me to start working, okay? Now, well, we're not going to get into that tonight. We'll talk about it another day. We'll save that problem for another day. The same thing down here, all of these same things that we just did up here, we can do down here with families, okay? We're not really going to get into creating families a whole lot this semester. We just don't have the time, honestly, to do it. But if you wanted to open a brand new family, or sorry, open an existing family you'd been working on, you'd click on open. If you wanted to create a new family, you'd click new. And if you wanted to open a family that you had been working on, right, you have the ability to do that from the recent documents, okay? At this point, I'd like to say this, because we're not going to be getting into families a whole lot, right? Revit, maybe I've said this before, Revit has 3 learning curves. Have I said this before? There is kind of the basic knowledge of Revit, right? So how does it function? How do we use the tools? How do we input information? So learning the fundamentals of the program. How does it function? That's one learning curve, okay? We have a second learning curve, which is families. How do we create families and add parameters and establish relationships? Okay, it's a whole nother topic. And then the third learning curve in Revit is how do I use the actual program to create a set of construction drawings, right? I know how to use Revit, but there's means and methods to how it functions and how it best functions when you're generating documents, right? So we have those 3 different learning curves to overcome. And in this class, we're really only going to get to that first one, which is understanding how to function in the software, right? In 2510, which is the residential design course, we learned a lot of advanced Revit techniques, right? So that's that learning curve. How do you use this to document a project? We learned that stuff in 2510, okay? All right, so we have now, right? We now have the ability to open a brand new file, right? So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to click on the architectural template. Click, and that's going to open up. All right. So we'll talk about the interface in a second. But one thing I do also want to show you is that when you're working in the interface here, you also have the ability to create a brand new Revit file. Okay. You don't just sort of lose the ability once you exit the welcome screen. So if I come up here to this little file tab here, click that little blue area, which is somewhat replaced the application menu, the big R, right? If I click on that, you'll see my first option is new. So I can choose new, project, family, right? I have a lot of things. But if I click on project, this familiar little dialog box pops up, right? And now I have the ability to choose whatever template I want to use. I even have the ability to browse out and find a custom template maybe that, you know, your office has developed or whatever, and use that. Okay, I'm going to cancel out of this. Okay. Now, one thing I want to talk about is I'm going to talk about the interface. And we're going to talk about the interface for a little bit, and then I want to get into file types and how we save files in Revit. Okay. We're going to get into navigation a little bit more next time. Those of you that have used AutoCAD, you're probably going to be pretty familiar navigating around Revit, right? So just quickly, I can use the little middle roller button on my mouse, and I can push it away from me and zoom in. I can pull it towards me and zoom out. I can double click the middle roller twice very quickly, click, click, and zoom extents. Okay. I can also, just like in AutoCAD, hold the middle roller button down, hold it down, move my mouse around, and I'm panning. Okay. So I'll leave the navigation at that for now, but if you want, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can pan back and forth. Okay. But let's talk about some of the things here in Revit. Number one, probably the most evident thing in Revit, and it's this white space here, right? This is our drawing board. So this is the model space of Revit if we're comparing it to AutoCAD. This is an infinite drawing board where I draw all of my model geometry, right? That's where I'm going to draw. You'll see here that we have some little, these are elevation symbols here in Revit. We're not going to worry about those too much just yet, but just know that's what they are. They're elevation symbols, okay? And without knowing how to draw anything, I'll just show you quickly, right? I can come in here and I can generate something very quickly in my drawing board, okay? So this is my drawing board. Just like in AutoCAD, I draw things in Revit to real world scale, right? I don't draw buildings smaller or larger than they are, right, to represent a scale. I always draw them exactly the size that they are in the real life. So if a building is 50 feet by 40 feet, in Revit, I draw that building 50 feet by 40 feet, okay? There's no other thought process behind that, like, oh, it's going to be scaled at 1/4 of an inch is equal to foot, so I have to make it smaller to accommodate that. There's none of that. You draw it the size that it is, okay? Okay, so here's our drawing board right here. Let's see. Over here to the side, this is something that's going to be really new from AutoCAD, for those of you that just took AutoCAD, right? We have a properties dialog box right here. It's on the bottom, and I'm just going to, do you see how the dialog box ends right here? I'm going to click and hold my mouse and drag it over, and I'm going to just dock it right next to this other project browser. Okay. I'm going to make these a tiny bit smaller so I can hopefully fit some of these things here. There we go. Okay. So one thing you're going to notice, again, those of you who haven't taken AutoCAD, it doesn't really matter, but I'm just comparing the two. In AutoCAD, we had a command line, right? In Revit, we don't really have a command like that where we type and input information. We have a little sort of information area down here that will give us a hint at what the next command is asking us for. But other than that, our input is not at the command line, okay? So I just want to say that. You'll notice because that's gone, really. We have a project browser over here, okay? And this project browser organizes all of our drawings in Revit. So if I create a new floor plan, a new elevation, a new section, they will all show up here, all right? You'll also notice that we have legends and schedules and sheets, a whole lot of things we don't know about yet, but we will be working with soon. But they're all organized here, all right? So you'll notice that we have this view area. This is the views. This is where the views of our model are organized. So floor plans, elevations, sections, details. And you'll notice down here we have families, groups, schedules, sheets. All of those things are sort of organized below the views, okay? You'll notice we have these little plus and minus signs next to some of these. If I click on them, it collapses them, right, to make it easier to sort of view things. If I want to access a view, I double click on it. So if I want to see level 1, click, click, really fast. And level 1 highlights black, and I can view level 1, right? Looks really good. If I want to view level 2, click, click, there's level 2, okay? If I want to view, oh, what's that? You don't have anything drawn in yours. Yeah. Yep, there's nothing in yours yet. Oh wait, is your project browser gone?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's a good question right there, right? So what happens if your project browser goes away, which is a #1 issue most of the time, right? You accidentally hit this little X and it's magically gone and you panic, of course. I would panic. You can get it back pretty easily. If you go to the View tab up here on your ribbon, click on the View tab, okay? And you go all the way to the end of User Interface. Click this down arrow. You'll see that we have little toggle boxes here that we can check and uncheck tools on our screen here. And you just want to turn Project Browser back on. I clicked on it, and it popped back up on my screen. There you go. So, one on top of each other?
Yeah, and I tried moving it, now they're just a mess.
Okay, so if you drag it like this on accident, it can go like that, right? Pain in the neck, we don't like that. So I'm just gonna click on the tab up here, and I'm clicking and holding, and I'm dragging it. I can mouse over the project browser and move up towards, you see that? Oop, and let go. Now, this will work like if you're on your laptop really easily, and it actually functioned here pretty well. I'm kind of surprised. But if you have 2 screens, right, sometimes this won't allow itself to be redocked like that because it can't sense the boundary of the screen on the one side. It's sort of reading both screens somehow-ish, right? So if you have trouble getting these docked back together, like that, it's likely if you have 2 screens, it's because of that. So I have to turn my second screen off and then dock my toolbars and then turn my second screen back on sometimes. Okay. You can also, let's see. Okay, do you see how I'm doing that? Oh, it docked it right next to it. That's not what I was trying to achieve. I'm trying to, it doesn't want to do it. I'm trying, maybe they've eliminated it. In 2018, the prior version, if you could stack one of these on top of the other so that like the properties was, it was a tab system where I could click on one tab and properties would show, and click on the other tab and the project browser would show. For some reason, let's see if I can get it to, it may not work. Ooh, it's not wanting to work. That's interesting. I can dock them one right next to the other, which is kind of nice. Anyway, okay. We won't force it.
Mine has tabs. If I do that, it has tabs at the bottom.
Oh yeah, yours is doing it then? Yeah, so it'll say properties and project browser at the bottom. You can click on one or the other. Yeah, and they'll switch back and forth. Yeah, so it looks like it still does happen. Oh, nope, I just can't get it to work. Come on now. Oh, maybe it's because I'm gonna pull that one out. Ha, there we go. Okay, so I had to undock that first toolbar from the side, and then now you can see I have tabs down here. There we go. If you want to get these tabbed, click on the tab, drag it over and out, and there it goes. My preference, if you're not already addicted to having two screens, you will be very soon. I like having two screens, and I like taking this little guy off on my second screen, and this guy too, so that I have even more real estate, right, for drawing just on one screen. Very snobby, I know. Okay, so I'll bring these back over here. Okay, oh, the other thing I was going to do, sorry, let me, I'm pretty sure, let me look up something real quick. I thought there was a keyboard shortcut like PB or something. Nope, not that. Anyway, I thought there was a keyboard shortcut to get your browser back, but I guess not. Okay. So this is our project browser. If it goes away, we go to view, we go to user interface, right? And we find it again. The same thing applies to properties. If my properties dialog box goes away, I go back up to view, I come all the way over here to user interface, and I make sure that my properties dialog box is turned back on. Oh, PP. There's properties, PP. Project browser doesn't have one, but properties, PP. All right, so project browser organizes our views and all of our sheets and construction documents, okay, all in one file. Properties tells me different properties about objects in my Revit system, all right? So, and really sort of the thing that is displayed in that properties dialog box is the currently selected object. And in the absence of a currently selected object, it will show information about the view that's on your screen, okay? So if I hit escape, 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 and escape is kind of the clear all tool, meaning if something's selected or there's something going on in your screen, if I hit escape, it clears out any command, anything that is chosen on the screen, just like AutoCAD, okay? So if I hit escape, escape, nothing is selected, you'll notice that it tells me about the view in the properties dialog box, right? So I'm in a floor plan, level 2, and it tells me you're in a floor plan, right? And this is floor plan level 2. And the scale of this view is 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. And the coarseness detail level is, or the detail level is coarse. And we're viewing the model normally, right? So all of the different settings that could be associated with the view are displayed here in my properties dialog box, okay? The second that I do something like select a wall, click, by clicking on it, you're going to notice that now that properties dialog box displays information or properties about that wall, right? Escape, escape. If I click on the elevation marker, ooh, it's stuck. Click on the elevation marker. Now I'm looking at properties of the elevation marker, okay? So it will show me properties about objects, but as you may have already guessed, it will also allow me to change any of these settings, right? So for example, I'm going to click on my wall. It says, this is a generic 8-inch wall. Well, I'm going to change that. I'm going to use my drop down, change it to exterior brick on metal stud. Great. Okay, I can change how tall it is, the location line on it. I can change what phase it's in. Okay, so by selecting something, the properties of that object are shown in the properties dialog box. All right, I'm going to hit escape, escape, and now only objects in about my view are shown. Okay. Does anybody have any questions so far about anything? Not too bad yet, right? Okay. Let's see. So we have our drawing space. We have our properties dialog box, our project browser. Let's look at the ribbon. All right. So up here at the top of our screen, we have this area here, right? And this is what's called the ribbon. And the ribbon contains all of our commands, all the commands that we use essentially, right? And all of these commands are grouped according to function. So we have the architecture tab, right? And under the architecture tab are tools for building architecture. So we have the build, we have circulation, which will create stairs. We have room creation, we have grid creation, we have some opening creation and some different modeling type things here. But really, right, all the things to create architecture are on the architecture tab. Yep.
So mine only has like, I'm assuming the basics on my
like you.
I have build, circulation, throttle, room, opening, datum, and work plan.
Yeah.
That's all I need?
Yeah. Yep.
I just want to make sure, because I was like, you have a lot more on yours than I do.
I do. Let me look.
Yeah, the way my ribbon set up. I mean, it could just be like a convenient
Oh,
update.
okay. I already see the problem with yours. Okay. I see. Andy's gotten herself in trouble over there. Okay. So everything is still there, but you see this little icon right here? Hers looks like that. And basically, it's just a visual setting for your ribbon. So if I click on it again, that happens. And if I click on it a third time, that happens. If I click on it a fourth time, they come back. So you can just cycle through them. Yep. All right. So we've got all of these different things for building architecture, right? If I go to, I'm not really worried about structure or steel or systems, but if I go, or insert for that matter right now, I'm going to go to annotate, click. And we have all of the things that we need to annotate a project. So we have dimensions and detail information and text and keynotes and all that good stuff here. If we go to, I'm just going to skip around. If we go to view, this is where we create and manage views, right? So views are these. And this is where we create and manage views. And we're going to go to modify. This is where we draw and modify geometry, okay? So architecture allows us to choose the architectural element we want to draw, and then modify allows us to choose how we are going to draw them, okay? All right, so that's our ribbon. Our ribbon gives us all of our tools. All of these different tools are an icon format on the ribbon, right? So if I want to use the wall command, I come up here, I click on the wall command. Magically, I'm in the wall command, all right? I'm going to hit escape. I'm out of the wall command now, right? I also have the ability with a lot of different commands on the ribbon to use a keyboard shortcut. So wall, if I hover over it, and those of you who had me for AutoCAD know I like to use the keyboard, right? I don't search for icons. My husband's an icon guy. He likes to search for things, apparently. So even now I'm like, oh, where's that icon? I forget which menus they're under because I don't like to use them that often. So for wall, instead of typing or coming up here and clicking, I type WA, right? You see how WA is next to that command? So I can come down here to my screen and type WA, and I'm in the wall command, okay? One thing you're gonna have to get used to in Revit, there's a few sort of functional differences in how we input information. One of them is you very rarely use enter in Revit, which is totally different than AutoCAD, right? In AutoCAD, you type something like L for line, enter, right? You type something else in, enter, enter. You're constantly hitting enter. With Revit, you just type WA and it initiates. That's it. There's no enter, right? If you hit enter, it'll make a noise. So we know that we're forgetting, right? that we don't need to hit enter. So you very rarely will hit enter in Revit, okay? So I'm gonna hit escape, WA, there we are, escape, escape. All right, next we have our quick access toolbar. It's located just above the ribbon. It's this little area up here, okay? The quick access toolbar contains contains commands that you will use very frequently, right? So you want to be able to access them quickly. So things like printing, saving, measuring, keynoting, text, 3D view. I use 3D view constantly. If you click on that, I'm in 3D view. Okay, well, that's kind of an odd little guy there. Huh. It also has a setting here that I'm going to just do something real quick here. It also has a setting. I'm going to show you something in, oh, you guys in AutoCAD are going to love this, right? Do you notice that as I look at my floor plan here that the walls already have a thickness associated with them, the wall lines? No more layers to define wall thicknesses, right? They're inherently built into your actual wall assembly, okay? So this little setting, so there's a lot of quick access settings, right? There's open, save, undo, print, measure, dimension, keynote, text, 3D, section, and then there's this setting. It's called thin lines, all right? If I click on it, the thickness does not show. It doesn't preview on my screen. And if I click on it again, it does preview. Now, these objects will always print correctly, so they'll always print with that correct pen weight shown. But there are times on the screen where maybe you don't want to see the thickness, right? When you're trying to line things up or do some type of operation. So it's a little bit easier to turn that off, okay? But the line weights are inherent. We can change them, we can customize them, but they're inherent, which is really nice. I have close inactive window, okay? I don't know if you noticed what just happened, but do you notice that I have, as I start opening more views, look, I open up site, oop, another view pops up. I open up ceiling plan 1, click, click, another pops up. Click, click on level 2, another pops up. And you notice that these previous ones don't go away, right? They still kind of stay open. I can click on elevation, click, 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 right? I'm opening up all these different views and they're all tabbing at the top, okay? And this is actually kind of a new and improved version of Revit. This was actually a really good improvement over 2018. The way that these used to function is that you would click, click and open up a view, and all the views that you previously had open would just stack invisibly behind the view you were on, right? What's nice about these tabs is that the same thing is happening, right? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 views open, with the most recent one just being current. But what's nice about this is that I can quickly go back and flip through the views that I previously had open, right? And I can see the views that were previously open, whereas in Revit 2018, they were hidden. I couldn't see behind and see what view was previously shown, right? So if I flipped through them, I was kind of flipping blindly through them. But here I can see them all, right? I can change back and forth between them, which is kind of nice, okay? If I have a current view open, this next quick access command is close inactive windows. So if I have this south view open, I've got all these other views stacked behind it. If I click on this icon, click, they all close, leaving south just open, okay? There's really no advantage or disadvantage to having windows open behind the one you're on, other than you can maybe flip back and forth a little bit, right? I guess when your project browser gets quite lengthy and you don't like to search for views, it's kind of nice to have maybe the most used views open so that you can flip back and forth pretty easily. Anyway, but as I open views, the previous view doesn't close, it just stacks right on top of the next one, okay? So close inactive windows will close those. And I also have switch window. I can click on this and change windows. It's the same thing as just coming over to here and clicking, 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 right? Switching windows is the same thing. I also, at the end of my quick access toolbar here, if I drop down, I have the ability to customize my quick access toolbar. So I can turn things on and off. So if I don't really use text, right, the text one is right here, I can uncheck that and it goes away, right? And you can also choose customize, and you can add other ones to it that you prefer, okay? Okay. I actually have never really done that. I honestly really only use 3D, thin lines, and close hidden windows. Those are my kind of my 3 access points. And I don't really want to close these out because I don't want to move my mouse all the way over there instead of just right here, right? Lazy drafter. All right. Let's see. We have our quick access. Let's see. We've got, next we have our view cube navigation. So you'll notice this little icon over here. AutoCAD has this as well. This is the view cube navigation, okay? And when I'm in a 2D view, I have the steering wheel essentially. So if I click on that steering wheel, this little steering wheel sort of attaches to my mouse. I never use this. I feel like it's pretty annoying. I can click on zoom, and it will allow me to zoom if I hold my mouse, which is super, that's just annoying. I feel like the workflow is terrible with this, right? I can click and hold pan, and I can pan but I can just hold my middle roller button down and pan anyway. So this little thing attached to my cursors, again, just super annoying. I can click and hold my zoom, but again, my middle roller button does that. So I feel like it's kind of useless in this application. Maybe if you didn't have a mouse with a middle roller button, it'd be helpful, right? But we do. So I'm gonna hit escape, but that's one way to navigate, okay? If I'm in 3D, my view cube looks like this, right? This is a little bit more AutoCAD looking-ish. And if I click, I click on the corner, back to 3D, right? So this is somewhat useful. I don't use it a whole lot because I'm more accustomed just coming up here to 3D, click, and then using, when I'm in 3D, if I hold shift down and I hold my middle roller button down at the same time and I move my mouse, I can orbit, right? So again, just a much easier workflow. This is fine. I just never use it. So I can go into 3D, hold shift down, hold the middle roller button down, and we move around, we orbit. Okay. All right, let's see. We have, next we have our view control bar. Okay. So this is where our visual styles are controlled, essentially. Here is our view control bar down here. This doesn't seem, I'm going to flip to a level 1 view, click. This doesn't seem that great just yet, but it will eventually when we get to some other things in Revit. But things that are shown here in my view control bar, they define the view, okay? So what does that mean? I can change the view scale from here, right? AutoCAD, super cumbersome, right? I want to change the scale of a drawing. I have to reset my annotation scale, make sure that my annotation is in the right spot, all that good stuff, kind of a pain in the neck. When I change the scale in Revit, I just click here and I can change the scale. Let's make it 1/4 of an inch. Done. Did you notice how wonderfully my little annotations just scaled by themselves without having to be asked? I just love it, right? So we can change our scale at any time and it's really nice. And I've got my detail level here, the coarseness of my view. Let me show you what that does. Okay, right now as I look at my wall, I only have this kind of blank fundamental object. If I choose, so that's on coarse, if I choose medium, information starts to appear, right? So I see the different layers of my wall. If I go to fine, if there's anything finer than that, it will start to appear. So I can choose fine, medium, or coarse. I usually kind of like to keep it at medium, and that will define all of the different striations of my wall and different elements in Revit. Okay, we have our visual style here. I'm gonna, yep.
I did have a question. When you print, do you have to change that?
Yes, you do. Yep. So this is going to be per view. We'll talk about per view a lot. But if this is set to coarse and you hit print, it will print a coarse level drawing. Yep. That's a good question. All right, I'm going to go to my visual style here. This is something, well, I guess in 2D AutoCAD we didn't talk about it a whole lot, but in 3D we do. If I click on it, I have a bunch of different visual styles I'm allowed to change my view to, okay? So I have wireframe, which makes things sort of, let me go to a 3D view. Things are somewhat invisible, so I can see through things. I have hidden line, which makes things opaque, right? I can't see through these as well. I have shaded, which makes things colored, all right? We've got consistent colors. These are all different iterations of this, essentially. But what this will do for you is it will help you in drafting, okay? Because sometimes it's nice to be able to see the colors of things to differentiate items, right? Some things appear red, some things, let's see, like our red brick there. Got a nice little brick pattern on there, right? So some things appear red or some different color, whatever, just kind of visually gives you a cue as to what we're looking at. Okay, I'm going to close my 3D view here. If I go back to my floor plan view and I change my visual style to shaded, right, the walls shade as well. So again, this is one of those things too, good question. Does it print like this? Well, yes, it does. So if you print this with a visual style like this, with a color printer, it'll print red brick and it will print a gray wall, right? So before we print, we have to make sure that we are in a hidden line view, so it's appropriate. Okay. And there's a lot of settings that you can build into Revit that will help you maintain this as you print. Okay. So we'll talk about that as we get to it. All right. I want to talk about our options bar, and I just want to let you know before I get into the options bar. One really kind of tricky thing about Revit is that sometimes things show up and sometimes they don't. Okay. Sometimes things show up if an item is selected, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes things show up as you're creating an object and they don't show up again. All right. And the modify or the options toolbar is one of those objects. So I'm going to have you look kind of in this little area right here. Okay. If I click on my wall, I don't get any modification items here. Okay. But if I initiate the wall command to define a brand new wall, I get a lot of different options to set. Okay. So this is a perfect instance of all of these different settings for my wall. They show up in the modify toolbar only as I generate a wall, and they don't show up again in that place. So if I draw a wall now, escape, great. If I click on it, those options are gone. Although a lot of them do show up in the properties dialog box. Okay. So as you create things, this is where the modify toolbar will be located, and a lot of settings can be defined in that modify toolbar. Okay. All right. Somebody's hitting enter when they shouldn't be. Huh? Nobody wants to, bless you, admit it. All right. So one more thing in our interface here that we're going to talk about is closing a current window, which we've kind of already talked about. But we have these views, and when we open our views by clicking on them, click, view opens, click, view opens, right? As I open my views, these tabs stack one on another, and you'll notice that we have this little X out, right? Exit out option to close. And if I want to close a view, I just click on close. Okay. I can close all of these views without exiting my Revit interface, right? They just open and close. They're very easily manipulated. At the point where I get to my last open view, if I click close, it will say, hey, at this point you only have one view open. If you close it, then you need to exit out and save Revit. Okay, so I'm going to click cancel here. But really, this is our Revit interface. Those are all of the items you're going to use to start drawing geometry in Revit. Okay, and there's a lot in the Revit interface. I feel like even more than like the AutoCAD interface, there's so many settings and so many different areas to go to, right? And I think as we continue to move along, we will we'll really get used to some of those things, but there's a lot of different settings. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. I kind of skipped over actually. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. Let me even talk about the rest of the few options in our view toolbar down here. So we have our scale, our visual styles, our coarseness level. I'm not going to worry about these two, the sun and shadows right now, but I have a crop view option. I'm gonna uncheck that. Okay. And what the crop view does, so you just noticed this little box turned on that's called a crop region. And if I'm just going to show you what this does basically. The crop region allows me to define the area in my view that I'm viewing, that I can see essentially. So what that does is it allows me to crop out stuff that's maybe around, the area of my drawing and my model. Maybe there's some things I don't want to see, right? Maybe I have some topography defined and there's trees out here and I don't really want to see the trees out there. So I can take this crop region and really just define what objects I see in my view. Okay, so this crop region is set where I can see it. I can click on these little blue grips and drag them out. Click and hold and drag, right? This crop region showed up when I clicked on this. Hide it, turn it on. Hide it, turn it on. Okay. Now, you'll notice that I have my crop region defined so that really, if I choose to crop this view, the tails of these levels will go away. So I'm going to come down here to crop view. It kind of shortened them and didn't quite get rid of them. Let me just pull this towards our building. You see how it's cropping the view of my building. Okay. So I'm allowed to crop or not crop, and I'm allowed to show my crop region or not. Now, the crop region in Revit is set so that we can see it, but there's a setting in the print dialog box that will not allow them to print, essentially, right? They're not pretty. We don't like to see them. I turn them off before I print because I don't like looking at them, but they won't print if I hit print right now. I have a couple other things I'm going to talk about. I have this little, and these icons for real are so tiny. I don't get why they can't just make them slightly larger so that we can actually see them, right? But I have this little pair of sunglasses, temporary hide and isolate. What that will allow me to do is, if I'm in a view, and I, for example, maybe want to see inside this building, but I can't see through this wall, if I click on it, and I come down here and click on this little pair of sunglasses, I'm allowed to hide that element. Click. And it turns off temporarily, okay? I know that it's temporary because I get a blue, this little cyan boundary around my view, okay? I can come back down to hide isolate and choose reset, and then it comes back, okay? So visually in Revit, you are gonna find there are a lot of times where it's hard to see things in the model, right? You're trying to draw something on the inside. You're trying to find a specific area to look at, and you can't see it because there's other building elements in the way, right? So Revit gets that, and they know that you'll want to be able to turn things on and off, but not permanently, right? They want you to be able to temporarily turn them on or turn them off and then be able to turn them back on. And then, so we have the ability to turn things temporarily on and off, but we also have the ability to turn them permanently off, which I'm going to click on this object, and I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go up to hide in view element, a little bit of a big workflow there, and I'm going to turn that off. So what I just did there was a permanent way of turning things off. So until I go back in and say turn that back on, it is turned off in my view. What this little light bulb down here does is it allows me to see those elements that are not visible anymore. So reveal hidden elements, click. It'll show me in that magenta color. That item is there, but it's turned off right now, okay? If I want to turn it back on, I can click on it and choose reveal, okay? Oh, did I reveal it? No. What did I do? Oh, unhide, sorry. Unhide. Close out, and it comes back. Okay. Lots of stuff, lots of definition these first few weeks, right? But don't worry, it'll get better. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Okay. We talked about the ribbon. Let me just make sure I haven't forgotten anything. We talked about the ribbon, the quick access toolbar. Let's talk about units. We're going to talk about units, and then we're going to talk about saving files and specifying backups. And I think that will probably get us through tonight. So Revit units. If you are using the construction template, if you're using the architecture template, then you don't have to worry about setting your units. They will be set for you, okay? And there's a couple of really quick ways to access units. You can just verify it if you want to, right? But if I click on UN, that's my keyboard shortcut. And you'll notice that I have my length units. I have a lot of units I can set. So area, volume, angle, slope, currency, mass density. So if I click on my length, this will allow me to change how my settings are viewed, or a set, I guess I should say. So you can choose any type of settings you want, right? We generally want feet and fractional inches. Rounding, another word or another name for precision, right? How do we want our units to read, right? If we pull a dimension, do we want to see every 1/32 of an increment, right? I usually say no. depending on the task at hand, of course. But I think probably like a 1/2 inch rounding is adequate. We can suppress 0 feet. So instead of saying 0 feet 6 inches, it will say 6 inches, right? I like that. I'm not going to worry about these, and I'm going to hit OK. So really my units were set. I just kind of fine-tuned how they looked a little bit, right? But if you left them out of the box, it would be just fine as well. So I'm going to hit OK, and now my units are defined. That's one way. UN. Escape, escape. The second way that I can define units is by going to the File menu, going down here to Options, and we have, let's see, oh, maybe that is not where we go. Where do we go? Let's see here. See, I don't use my, there we go. Okay, sorry, it was under Export. I was thinking it was under Options. If we go to Export and we go to Options here, no, that's wrong. Sorry, guys. Where are my units? I thought it was under Options. Let's look. No. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Let's go to another tab. Let's go to Manage here. I think I'm thinking of something else. Let's go to Manage. If I go to the Manage tab here, I have my units. I know they're here. Yes, where are they? There they are. They're hiding. Okay, see, I like the keyword shortcut. You don't have to look for anything. Under Manage, you go to Project Units and you click and you get the exact same dialog box. Okay, so you can change them however you want them to be, essentially. All right, so that's setting units, but again, really you don't have to worry about them too much because they're set if you're using the template files. All right, so we know how to open a new Revit file. We know generally how to define what kind of file we're opening, right? Is it a construction template? Is it an architectural template? We know that we have these things called families where you can create a new file, but we're not doing that just yet. Let's talk about saving our files, okay? And I want to talk about saving our files, what type of file extensions we have in Revit, and then how we specify our backup files, okay? So this will be our final topic, I promise. All right. So, all right. So when we save a Revit file, we can come up here and use the quick access toolbar. I can click on save here. I can Control S if I want to. And I can also come here to File, Save. All right. And I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've saved this file. And I started it with the architectural template, right? So if I wanted to save this for the first time, I need to, number one, pay attention to the format of the file. And I also need to pay attention to how many backup files are running. All right. So I'm going to go to my desktop here. And I have a folder called Revit generated already. Click, click. And I'm going to delete these. Pay no attention. Let me delete all these real quick. Ooh, don't let me do one at a time. Okay. All right, so I hit save and we'll call this example project. That's great. Okay. So you'll notice that, I guess I think this is but this is by default, if I remember right. The .rvt extension is indicated here, okay? So I hit File, Save, okay? And you'll notice that the .rvt extension shows up. The .rvt extension is a Revit working file. It's just like a DWG file for AutoCAD. If I drop down right here, you'll notice I have two options. I have the RVT and the RTE extension. Okay, RTE is for Revit template file. So you are allowed, if you would like, to create your own template file, right? Which happens all the time. So when you're working in an office, each office will establish their own template file. They don't just open up generally the architecture template or the construction template to work. They will open one of those up. They will customize the title block, they'll customize workflow, they'll organize their project browser, they will load in families that they use all the time, right? They will bring in and they will set it up how they like to work, okay? And then they will create a new template file for their office, right? So when you start a new file, if you're working somewhere, you'll open up the SLCC standard template file, and that will have all of your preset settings in it, okay? So you can do that. I like to say this though, Revit's pretty good out of the box, right? So if you're kind of just using it for yourself or just small projects, right? You're using it at home or whatever, like it's pretty good out of the box. The line weights are really good. You have pretty good title blocks inherent in it. You have a lot of families in it, right? You have a lot of really good preset wall types, a lot of good stuff, right? So if you're just working on your own, you don't have to change a lot of stuff unless you want to just kind of make things easier for yourself. So if I choose RTE right now, that would say this is a new template file, okay? RVT is a Revit working family. Okay, so I'm going to keep the RVT, and before I hit save, one other important thing to do before you hit save on your first save is to choose options and to specify how many backup files you generate. Okay, so it's 3 now. It used to be 10. So Revit would by default generate 10 backup files, and it was always super problematic. So it's a lot of backup files. So I'm going to keep 3. If you wanted to change it to 5 or 2, that's fine. Okay. But just verify that's correct. And you're going to hit OK, save. And now I'm going to hit save a couple times. Just save, 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 right? You want to see those backup files generate, right? And here's my file structure. So there's my .rvt file, which is my working file. And then here are my 3 backup files. I know that these are backup files because there's that numerics input right there. Okay, so this was the 3rd save, this was the 4th save, this was the 5th save. Let me see if I can get these 2 things on the screen at the same time. Okay, well, I'm going to a project. I'm going to hit save, save, and you see how the numbers start shifting? So they just continue to save one over the top of the next. 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So now we have 28 saves, all right? I'm going to close out of this file. Here we go. And this would be a project where I could click on it and it would open up and I could start working. I'm going to close out of it. And I still have my 3 backup files. Now, I'm just going to give you guys a warning, okay? And I've done this. I'm guilty of it. It happened not too long ago and I was very upset with myself. One thing I don't like about Revit is that these backup files, if you double click on one, click, guess what happens? It opens up and it looks like a regular working file, right? The problem with this is that if you save it and it's somewhat of an older backup file, meaning you had a lot of time between your saves, okay, it will overwrite your current file, right? Essentially killing all of your work from the point of that last save to where you were at, right? And you think, oh, I'll never do that. That'll never happen. Well, it can happen if your browser's like that and the working Revit file was always on the bottom and somebody got into your file structure and went like that and changed it, right? Who would do that? Somebody, right? So it can very easily happen. And it happened to me not too long ago and I was just super mad about it because I'm really, honestly, usually very careful with my files because I know this can happen, right? I wish Revit would somehow allow you to route these to a folder, right? So they were kept separate from your working file, so you didn't actually accidentally double click and hit save, right? It happens real quick. I guess my point is just when you're opening up files, be very cautious about what you're opening up because we can't separate these 4 or 5 different files from one another. They're always in the same spot and they always save in the same spot, right? So if I were to delete these, oh, it will not let me do it. Oh, well, let me do it. So I was able to delete one, right? But if I were to delete those, and I hit save, oh, and I have my backup file open. Anyway, it will start generating new ones in the exact same spot, right? So there's no way of getting around that I have my working file, my 3 backup files in the exact same spot. We just have to know that, and we have to be very careful about opening things up correctly, okay? So those are our 2 different file types. We have, for a working Revit file, we have the RTE, which is a template file. We have the RVT, which is a working file. And we have one third and final file that we won't be working with a whole lot, but it's an RFA, and that is a Revit family file. Okay, so if I were to open up a Revit family, I'm just going to open up this little table again. Okay, and I went to File, Save. You'll notice that I have an RFA extension, all right? So if I go to my desktop and I go to my Revit folder here and I hit Save, even families have backup files. Okay, and now I look at my file structure. There's my Revit family. Okay, so RFAs are families, RVTs are Revit working files, and RTEs are Revit template files. All right, so RTEs, let me just show you one other thing here. These are all considered RTE files because they're a template, right? You open them, they're blank, and they have settings in them to help you work. So these are inherent RTE families. We're in this class, we're not gonna, like in AutoCAD, we sort of did a little bit of template work, right? I just don't think it's that necessary, you know. When you get more advanced, a more advanced user in AutoCAD or in Revit, you'll start thinking, oh, if I want to add some more dimension styles, I want to add this or that, or maybe my workflow would be better with this. Then you'll be prepared to maybe add a template, right? Which you can do very easily. But for right now, I think we're pretty good. Just using Revit out of the box, the settings work pretty well. So we won't get too heavily into that, but just know that these are actually RTE files, okay? All right, let's see here. Does anybody have any questions for me so far? No? Okay, we have an assignment. It's not gonna take you very long, but I wanted you to save a few files. All right, so I'm going to open up Canvas here real quick. Let's go to assignments. And your assignment will be starting a new file, and it's going to be due on the 9th, which I think is Sunday evening by midnight. Yes. For this assignment, you'll be required to complete the exercise found on page 28-29 of your Revit course manual. And so you're going to follow the instructions on the course manual pages, and then you will turn in essentially these different things. Those are going to be your deliverables. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to go to, here's page 28. I want you to open up a few different file types and save them essentially. So first thing, open up Revit 2018. While in the startup screen, click on the new project link. Okay, so we would click on the new project link. When the new project dialog box comes onto the screen, use the drop down and choose none for your project type. Press OK and make sure to choose Imperial Units. This should take you into the Revit project interface. Once you're in there, go to the File, choose the Save As option and save it as a project. Okay, give it the name New Blank Project. So essentially, if we go back to Revit, we're going to click on New, and we're going to choose None. We're going to hit OK. Choose Imperial. Okay. And your first step, File, Save As, or Save, one of the two, Save. And this one will be called New Blank Project. And it says, let me see what it says. And save it so there are 5 backup files running, and then press OK to save it. So we want to go to Options. We want to make sure this says 5, hit OK, save, and then the instructions say save it at least 5 times so you get your 5 backup files running, and then exit. And then we're going to do part 2, which is the same thing, just using a different file type to start with. Okay, So I'm going to come here, I'm going to save, 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 save. And we have our new blank project. Ooh, that opened really quickly, didn't it? We have our new blank project and our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 backup files. Okay, so you're going to do that 3 different times. One, I think you open up, let's look. You do it with the architectural template, then you're going to do it with the construction template. Okay, so you'll have 3 different files that you'll upload to Canvas, and also a screenshot image of your file structure showing you have the appropriate number of backup files running. Okay, so once you get everything saved here, all you need to do is go down to your little window, type snip. Do you guys know about the snip tool? The magic snip tool, right? You don't know about the snip tool? Oh my gosh, it's gonna revolutionize your workflow. Just kidding. Well, it is really kind of cool. So I typed snip here, and this pops up, snip tool, and it's a screenshot tool. So essentially, I click on new, and it allows me to just draw a rectangle around something that I want to screenshot. I know, right? I hit save, and I'm going to go to my desktop. We'll call this screenshot, save, and that will be what you, let's go to desktop. There's my backup file screenshot. That, hold on, obviously, this is a, where's the photo editor? Well, let's use that, okay. And it looks like that, right? So you can attach that as your screenshot. Really easy, very, very easy to use. But I want to see that you have the appropriately named files and that you have the appropriate number of specified backup files, okay? So in total, you will be submitting, it says the instructions, but 1, 2, 3 files and a 4th item, which is the screenshot, okay? Any questions so far? No question.
We are using 19, right?
19, yes, yes, we are. Oh, yes, we are. It probably says 18 in here, but yes, we're using 19. And just as a reminder, if you're like, where is my course manual, right? Go to modules, and here's the course manual for that assignment. Okay. All right. Any questions? Not terrible, right? So next time, I'm going to stop this recording real quick here.